Welcome to Highlights from the Caribbean Investment Forum. I'm Lizelle Rovedas, and this week we're focusing on agriculture and its role in the state's diversification drive. During this episode, we hear about issues such as the food import bill, food security, branding, and the creation of products derived from foods which are indigenous to the Caribbean. Stakeholders at this forum also got a chance to ask questions and discuss key issues affecting the sector. Here are some highlights from this informative session. 25 billion. That is the amount of food CARICOM imports annually. Barbados' import bill hovers around $600 million, while Jamaica imports more than 60% of its food. On average, it spends $1 billion a year. And in this country, our import bill is $4 billion. These staggering statistics alarm heads of states throughout the region, and many countries are working on slashing hefty food import bills. As CARICOM leaders begin to mobilize to reduce the dependency on imported goods, new opportunities are opening up for entrepreneurs, agri-processors, and farmers. This in turn is leading to the development of new products made from foods which are indigenous to the Caribbean. Countries such as Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Jamaica, and St. Lucia have become quite innovative, creating delicious products that are being skillfully marketed internationally. Managing Director of Baron Foods, Ronald Ramjatan, believes this region can use the resources at its disposal to corner niche markets. Speaking during the Caribbean Investment Forum, he calls on entrepreneurs to tap into available opportunities and highlights how his company markets its latest innovation.
The focus on agricultural investment is diverse and can include small to large-scale agriculture, agro-processing, and even ecotourism development. My focus today will be on areas that have modeled Baron Foods Limited into the organization it has evolved into, with special focus on the banana ketchup story, a product that has given new meaning to the word innovation. It is my hope that you, the food processors of today and tomorrow, will feel encouraged and motivated to forge your own success story. Baron Foods Limited is not immune to the many challenges facing the industry, but we have not abdicated from investing in the region. As a matter of fact, the global downturn have amplified our investments into the Caribbean. A cadre of product research initiatives, the idea of banana ketchup was envisioned. Although this product has its origins in the Philippines, with the production dating back to the Second World War, commercial production was not introduced until the 20th century. According to research, food technologist Maria Y. Oroso is considered to have come up with the first version of the recipe at a time when there was a severe shortage of tomatoes, and at the same time there was a surplus production of bananas. Due to the shortage of tomatoes, there was a concomitant reduction in the amount of tomato ketchup that was being produced. Bananas were cooked with the same ingredients to make the sauce. The original color was dark brown, but red coloring was added to mimic the look and the taste of tomato ketchup. The banana industry was booming in St. Lucia and the other OECS islands in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and even in the 90s, and its volume was controlled by Europe, and that who had the monopoly for its produce. By the mid-1990s, the banana industry saw a major decline that led to a surplus of bananas in the OECS islands, and more so St. Lucia. It's against this backdrop, coupled with the positive research that was conducted at that time, that Baron Foods Limited decided to formulate the ever-popular Baron banana ketchup. Although Baron Foods Limited was well aware of the abundance of bananas at the time, which eventually catalyzed the creation of Baron banana ketchup, The reality that this product might be rejected on the local market was ever present among the core management team. In light of this, a marketing strategy that was employed was one that initially catered for the tourist market. With the realization that the Baron banana ketchup would appeal to the foreigners, special gift packages were developed and sold at cruise ship berths, airports, hotels, and specialty shops. Can you imagine, with a vibrant tourism season, what can be accomplished with just one product?
Banana ketchup is cornering its share of the market. So too are many other Caribbean products, such as locally produced cassava chips and pumpkin ketchup. CEO of the Trinidad and Tobago Agri Business Association shares more about other regional strategies used to tackle the spiraling food import bill.
Let me just talk a little bit about the regional level. You may be aware that CARICOM just last year was agreeing on a regional food security strategy. The major objective there is to seek to ensure that each country seek to have a food security strategy that ensures that they produce at least 25% of all that they consume. In some cases, mainly in fruits and vegetables, most countries have already exceeded that. But when it comes to the staples, almost all countries have a weakness in that regard. So I've put there for you some indication of the targets being set. In the case of the root crops, the target in 16,000 acres. At the primary level, that's over $40 million US. And in each area, in the livestock, in vegetables, in fruits, there are specific targets, and governments are putting in place the kind of trade policies and the kind of national support policies to make this a reality. And again, you will see a lot of that being rolled out here in Trinidad and Tobago. For the export market, tremendous opportunities for us to look at using our history in cuisine to develop new products for export. Not just the primary products or our individual product, but to combine the products into attractive meal options. Our approach, and this is an approach that has been adopted across the region, is to look at each commodity and to take a value chain development. When you do that, then you recognize that there are opportunities both in health and nutrition market as well as in the industrial market. And any single commodity will allow you to look at the span of possibilities, both in terms of the health and nutrition market as well as the industrial market. And I've used some examples here just to give you an indication of what is possible. So when you think about agribusiness and agribusiness development, you ought not to confine your thinking simply to the food sector. There are tremendous opportunity outside of food. Notwithstanding that, the greatest opportunity for us in the region at this point, I believe, is in the area of the food market. I'm going to use the Trinidad and Tobago Agribusiness Association and the relevance that it poses to the Caribbean. In fact, at the level of CARICOM, the ministers have agreed that the model for development of the agribusiness sector in Trinidad is a good one, and in fact has advised that this model be adopted or modified as each country sees fit across the region. And therefore there are significant relevance between what is happening in Trinidad and the kinds of opportunities that are being created that will be relevant to the wider Caribbean.
Locally, the state has been working assiduously to transform the agriculture sector. Through various incentives, farmers are able to irrigate and fully mechanize their base of operation.
I want to now speak to some very specific opportunities that are available through TABO and CABO. You would know that in Trinidad and Tobago, the government has been providing significant financial support to TABO to provide a basis for diversifying the sector with specific focus on a number of commodities. There are tremendous opportunities in those areas, and I know the minister will speak, and that's why I won't elaborate. However, I want to speak to a very specific opportunity that we have. Part of TABO's responsibility is to seek to attract investment in the sector. And under the government's large farm program, we have acquired or in the process of completing the acquisition of 242 acres of land in Picton, South Central Trinidad, in an area that has tremendous possibility, not just the lands in the area that we have, but it's one of the areas that the government is looking at for development. And the possibilities there, when you look at the topography in the area and the planned development, we have put on the table a project to get involved in a major agrotourism development project. We're at the stage where the pre-feasibility has been done. and we are now looking for investors to partner, not so much with TABA, because our strategy is to bring the private sector together to make this kind of investment. But it's a very tangible investment opportunity that is going to integrate tourism with agriculture in a way that would ensure that investors would have very attractive return on their investment. We probably utilize not more than maybe 5 to 6% of the total land for the tourism component, but it will provide the kinds of returns that will make it extremely attractive. In the case of Trinidad and Tobago, we have a clear role for the sector. Government has made it pretty clear that food and nutrition security, the issue of economic diversification, export growth, and rural development are critical parts of the role that the agriculture sector must play. Indeed, even the area of agrotourism and the linkage between agriculture and tourism forms part of what the role of a sector is recognized to be. If you don't have balanced trade policy, you really can't develop the sector. There's an issue of how do you treat with the whole question of food security versus that of export competitiveness. Very often they seem to conflict in that if you have to protect the domestic market for food security, it doesn't provide you with the kind of competitive forces that you need in order to generate new products and to become efficient. And therefore, while you're looking at protecting the market, you must also open the market to allow some degree of competition. So that balance is also critical. The investment policy must be clear, particularly as it relates to fiscal incentives. The need for infrastructure that will support the investment, roads and all that kind of capital investment that government must make. Equally important is the whole question of legal and regulatory measures. Again, if you don't have those in place, the investor will not have the confidence to make the investment. So those are critical first steps. The issue of sustainable policy development. You need policies that recognize in the long term the importance of environment. It is becoming absolutely critical that we have the kind of food safety regulations in place if we are to access international markets. And in many instances, even to access your own domestic markets. And I could give you a number of current experiences where we're trying to get into domestic markets where the food safety issue looms large and in fact, in some instances, could be a major deterrent. The governance policy, I think more and more, and in the case of Trinidad and Tobago, that's a very topical and hot issue in terms of ensuring that there is good governance at all levels. So those are a critical first step. In the case of what we term the meso level, that is what's happening in institutions. If you don't have institutions that are capable of implementing the policies, then notwithstanding that you have comprehensive and effective policy formulation, the institutions, particularly the public institutions, must have the capacity. And I won't go into too much details on that except to say, again, in Trinidad, government is doing a number of things to strengthen those particularly in the agribusiness sector, to ensure that they have the capacity to implement the government's plan. We now have in Trinidad and Tobago a very clear plan. It's now Agriculture Now plan, and I'm sure the Minister will speak extensively on that. So I won't go too much into that, except to say that it again is defined clearly what the role of the sector is. There's a very motivating vision, and there are some very specific objectives, which allows everyone to understand where we are going and how we plan to get there.
Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment, Vasan Bharath, was another key speaker at the Caribbean Investment Forum. He gave further insight into the state's diversification effort.
We are now on our way to trying to make Trinidad and Tobago a food secure nation. And why are we doing that? Because when we first came into office, we realized that during our election campaign in 2010, the two things that were uppermost on people's minds were crime, number one, and the second was the cost of living. And the cost of living is driven primarily by the price of food. We are importing into Trinidad and Tobago $4 billion worth of food every single year, and have been doing so for the last 4 or 5 years. $4 billion worth of food. In the CARICOM region, and I say this for a particular reason, the CARICOM region imports $25 billion worth of food. And the reason I give you that figure and that information is it gives you an understanding of the opportunity that's available on our doorsteps. It gives you an understanding of the fact that you don't need to look at markets like North America and the UK at this point in time, but there is a market directly on our doorsteps that if we do certain things right, the market is ready there for us. and many of our speakers, and the reason why Mr. Ramjatan's company, Baron Limited, would have been successful, is that they are able to produce a product that is delivered on time. When they say they will deliver it, it's delivered. It'll be the same quality that was the last shipment that was approved would have been. It would have been generally the same price. So they would have they are running their organization as a business. So from day one, I have been preaching that the only way agriculture will succeed is if we look at it as a business. Looking at it as a business doesn't mean you're going to be trapped by the taxman, because that's what a lot of farmers run from. The fact that they don't keep records, they don't look at trends. As a direct result, what happens is that you're unable to really track success and know the difference between success and failure. So it's very important, and everything that we have done has been based on the fact that agriculture now must be run as a business. And this is where agribusiness entrepreneurs come into play. A short time ago, maybe 2 months ago, we put out this, what's called our National Food Production Action Plan for the periods 2013 to 2015. And the purpose of this document, which let me add, was developed in consultation with all of the farmers associations in Trinidad and Tobago, and we met with over 100 farmers associations, with the fisherfolk associations in Trinidad and Tobago, with the hoteliers, the restaurants, because we not only wanted to understand the primary side of agriculture, we wanted to understand the entire value chain. We wanted to understand where the opportunities were. So at different times over the last 18 months, over the last 22 months, we met with all of these different stakeholders. And I don't particularly care for the word stakeholders, but in this case, because it has been used so loosely over the last many years, but in fact we really did identify all of the stakeholders. We met with them individually, and this document came out of that. We have several mandates for Trinidad and Tobago. The first is to provide food security for our people. The second is to lower the cost of food, because inflation is driven primarily by the cost of food. The third is to put our people back to long-term productive employment. The fourth is that agriculture will be used as an engine of diversity away from oil and gas, and no longer have us in a perilous position where when the price of gas goes up or the price of oil goes up on the international markets, our economy goes up, and of course the reverse happens when the price of oil and gas falls. So we are essentially at the moment, and have been for many years, at the mercy of the international community. And the fifth mandate was that by doing all of those things, we would reduce our output of foreign exchange, which could be then used for many other goods and services.
He also highlights efforts to revive the rice industry.
So we've said that in order to grow more rice, we've got to look at new varieties, we've got to look at distribution of more lands, we've got to have technical expertise, and one of the reasons we went to India and we came back with information that there's a particular strain of rice that may be grown in India. We're experimenting with stuff that's grown in Guyana, and we will come up with what's best for our country. Now, I want to state at the outset that I believe that government's role should be and always ought to be to create the enabling environment. It is not government's role to go and plant rice or to go and plant cassava. It is government's role to create the enabling environment such that you, the entrepreneurs, the investors, the farmers, would feel a level of comfort that this is a sector that I want to invest my time and I want to invest my money. It is the reason why we have only recently brought on board 50 agricultural graduates out of the University of the West Indies. And what they will experience firsthand is real farming. They will also now be able to look at different sectors of the economy to determine which of the sectors that they would want to get involved in as far as creating the opportunities. They would then have a year to determine whether they want to invest in livestock, whether they want to invest in aquaculture, whether they want to invest in agro-processing, whether they want to invest in cocoa, which is one of our specialty products, and so on. To succeed in this business, you really do have to approach it as a business. It can no longer be business as usual. You have to look for new technology. You have to embrace new techniques. You have to be doing your research. You've got to be on the internet looking at how people in Costa Rica and Israel and other places are doing it, and Guyana and other places. How Mr. Ramjatan is doing what he's doing. All of those things are important. Research is absolutely important. There are very few things that we need to do here in Trinidad and Tobago that requires us to reinvent the wheel. Most of it is available on a worldwide basis. So it's all about essentially building the brand Trinidad and Tobago. We have some fabulous products. Trinidad and Tobago's cocoa is known to be one of the finest in the world, one of only 7 countries that markets fine flavored cocoa across the globe. I've traveled internationally for many, many years. For 30 years I traveled 150,000 miles every single year because of the jobs that I did. So I interact with many different people, with many different cultures. And wherever I had the opportunity to go, I would tell people I was from Trinidad and Tobago, and they say, where? And if it's a cricket playing country, I'd say Brian Lara. And they go, yeah, well, Brian Lara, Trinidad. Yes, everybody knew Trinidad and Tobago because of Brian Lara. I went to the International Cocoa Festival, the Cocoa Show in Paris, which is the world-renowned show to highlight high-end chocolates. And everybody who I told I was from Trinidad and Tobago, they almost wanted to hug me and kiss me. And I'm talking about men, huh? So the point is that Trinidad and Tobago has a very high repute for cocoa, for coffee, for citrus. Professor John Spence told me recently that in the mid-70s, Trinidad and Tobago used to export over 1 million crates of grapefruit to Europe. Today we import almost all of the citrus that we consume. In fact, last year we imported $70 million worth of citrus concentrate. $70 million worth of citrus concentrate. That gives you an indication of where we have come from. Today, in the 20s and 30s, we produced over 35,000 tons of cocoa. Today, we produce about 600 tons of cocoa. And we could sell 100 times as much cocoa than we currently produce. It just requires the will, it requires the government to do its part to create the enabling environment, but it needs you, the agro-entrepreneurs, to look at those opportunities, study the investment opportunities that we're going to present to you, work out how other people across the world are doing it, look at new markets, and I guarantee you that Trinidad and Tobago will meet its mandate for being a food secure nation.
Dr. Yesu Prasad, CEO of Demerara Distillers, agrees with comments made by all stakeholders at the Caribbean Investment Forum.
There's no reason for us to import food. You have 2 countries that have huge areas of land. That's Belize and Guyana. Trinidad, yes, has land also. And I think there's a lot of land that is laying waste that should be put to work and put to use so as to produce food. UN has indicated that it's likely the population of the world is going to be around 9 billion in the year 2050, 2060. Now, where are we going to find the food from to feed all these people? Unless we start growing and be innovative and produce greater yields so we could feed people not only in the region, but globally. So we got to think of the world at large, because there's a market there too, because if you could produce the product that the market wants, then we'll also be helping ourselves as a Caribbean nation. I give you an example of how you could be innovative. In the 80s, when Mr. Burnham banned all food products, or all products, from entering the country, we decided to experiment. One of my big businesses, the spirits business, El Dorado, Smirnoff vodka, and a whole host of other things. We decided to experiment. We got our research and development personnel the fruits were in plentiful supply, and we decided to produce a product called tropical fruit mix. Now this product is in demand throughout the year in Guyana, and people coming in from overseas, especially the Guyanese living overseas, they will want to know where they could get it, how quick they could get it. And, between 78 and 80, vinegar, all the vinegar produced in this region used to be imported. We decided we were going to experiment with vinegar, using alcohol as a base. And we were the first to produce a vinegar called EHP. We are now producing vinegar for some of the large producers of the region, exporting now. As Mr. Barron has shown, we can And we must and we will if we want to survive as a region that could reduce its import bill substantially. Trinidad need not be importing so much today of its food products. It can be grown right here. I remember the days coming to Trinidad when on the roadside you could get almost every type of product you could think of available. That no longer exists.
He also re-emphasizes the importance of quality control and calls on countries to become self-sufficient.
If we in the region could start producing food in volumes for export, first of all for local usage and then for export, but it must be of the highest quality, because quality still counts. This region could really be going places. This, in addition to its other wealth in terms of oil, places like Suriname and Guyana, with their natural resources, gold, that is now two of the big products in Suriname and Guyana, and other minerals. The whole region could be self-sustaining and moving into the future with confidence. Don't let's all depend on North America or Europe for giving us handouts. Let's go and start doing things to help ourselves.
This forum provided a wealth of knowledge. Many stakeholders are impressed by the success stories which were shared. However, quite a few feel that more work still needs to be done to lay a stronger foundation for the development of a lucrative agriculture sector.
My family came from agriculture, and I can tell you from since then, back in the 80s, as much as I can remember, right, predial larceny was a serious thing then, right? It's a serious thing now, right? And it certainly makes it very uneconomical, because you could spend months planting something, and in one night, the day before you're ready to reap, it's gone, right? And it's a serious heartbreak for a lot of people, and that's why a lot of my uncles just sold their land, and they just bought some big houses and they move away. The second thing is in terms of sustainable land development and sustainable land use. What we have is like, even with the squatters, we have a lot of squatters squatting on land. Yes, it's agriculture, but they do not use the land sustainably. So they don't properly use the land. When the land is depleted, move on to another piece.
Very much in the same way that you have gated compounds, we will have gated communities for agriculture. So where we have large food areas, we will have gates and we will have security both on patrol as well as at physical points, checkpoints, to be able to ensure that we cut down. And also at the same time, simultaneously, we will introduce a much more rigorous and stringent system at the places of sale. So at Makoya Market, for example, you would have to have proof that you are the owner of these goods, either that you bought it or that you actually grew it. So nothing is foolproof, and particularly for Trinis, as you know, but we are trying our very best to try to clamp down as much of the predial larceny as we possibly can.
The Minister of Trade, Industry and Investment says every effort will be made to assist innovative entrepreneurs and manufacturers, but he believes the key to their success lies in the hands of an effective marketing strategy.
Yes, you can see Grace products, and you could probably see Baron products, and you can see a number of other products in Miami and in the UK and other places. But it's because those entrepreneurs, like Mr. Ramjatan, has worked very hard at marketing his brand. You know, the other thing too is that before you can market your brand, you've got to also market your country. The people who would have bought from Jamaica, Grace products from Jamaica, or Mr. Ramjatan's, they probably know St. Lucia and they know Jamaica far more than they know Trinidad. Because we have never been active in marketing what we do apart from oil and gas, and we didn't even have to market that. We pulled it out of the ground and we sold it directly to a primary user. So it's all about marketing, it's all about building the brand.
Key players in the CARICOM region admit that they do have a daunting task attempting to slash the food import bill. They are hoping that increased agri-productivity, campaigns to encourage Caribbean nationals to buy locally produced goods, and the development of new products along with rigorous marketing campaigns will reduce the dependency on foreign goods.